Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of the MHS Potters Coaches Show. Ryan Lindley, I'm Eric Myers, and this week we finally get to sit down with some spring sports coaches, right?
Yeah, really excited about this. We got three separate interviews, 4 coaches, and we get a chance to kind of dive into some of our spring sports.
Yeah, I mean, the weather outside still is not exactly the best. You know, both of us as baseball coaches, we've got outside a handful of times, but in the wonderful Potter Dome, we got in there a whole bunch, taken a lot of ground balls and done a lot of wiffle ball hitting, tennis ball hitting, weighted ball hitting. You know, we're getting there, but the weather looks to be changing so that you can come out and watch some of these spring sports. But Coach Lindley, who do we have up first?
So first interview, softball head coach Jessica Kerby took the time to talk with us a little bit in the Potter Dome as well. Coach Kerby also struggling with getting outside, of course, as we are with baseball. Same with Coach Kerby and Coach Hurst in softball. But the interview was great, so let's take a look at our interview with MHS softball head coach Jessica Kerby. Welcome back to our MPTV Coaches Show. We're here with our head varsity softball coach, Jessica Kerby. Coach, talk to me a little bit about obviously still early, but how's the season going? Weather maybe not the best in the early going here, but practice is about 2 weeks in. What's going on?
So far so good. I mean, we got a lot of young players. We're kind of coming together as a team and just working on all that stuff you got to get ready before the first game, bunt defense and all that.
Yeah, is there one thing, and obviously there's more than one thing, but is there one thing if you were thinking about this year practice-wise that maybe you're focusing on as like a number one skill you want to see the team improve in?
Communication. Yeah, we don't do a bad job of it, but definitely we've got some quiet players. And not that they don't know what they're doing, they don't talk, it's just getting, well, you all know, like baseball, you got to project your voice a lot louder. So that's definitely a big one, and productive communication, definitely.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit about kind of key players, maybe young players that you see stepping up. I know obviously, graduated pitchers from last year, so probably that's an important spot, but who's kind of on the radar fans are looking at that they're going to see out there on the field this year?
Well, we don't have any seniors this year, but we do have 2 juniors, Addie Booth and Addie Guerrera, and they're definitely going to be our key leaders this year on the field. They're doing a great job so far. As far as pitching goes, you mentioned that. We did graduate both of our varsity pitchers and seniors, Abby Jones and Sasha Troxel, so we've got our whole staff is sophomores. So Riley Gashaw is going to get a lot of time on the mound for us. Probably Haley Carpenter is going to step in some, and just more by committee, so they're working hard to try to get the ball where it needs to go so we can be productive that way.
All right, and then kind of just a little bit maybe outside the box question here, but for you, obviously having played here and now coaching here, just talk to me about kind of how you feel in terms of like building the program and just being back here, obviously your alma mater as the head coach.
It's definitely a full circle feeling, and we are in a rebuilding process, but I do feel like I'm really giving back. So got involved kind of at the youth level, and Stacy Bisher, my former coach, is coaching 10U now because her daughter's 10, so they're kind of trying to build that fire at the young level. We're trying to give them a product they can see on the field to get the girls excited about playing and sticking with it. But it's definitely feel a sense of accomplishment, I guess, that I'm back and I'm trying to rebuild the program and to return it to what it once was.
Awesome. And then just kind of the last question, if you're looking at the schedule or fans who maybe watching us are thinking about heading out to a softball game this year, is there anything that's maybe a highlight or game that you're really looking forward to, or something you would say to folks like they should definitely get out and see?
Pick one in May when the weather's maybe going to be better and not freezing cold or blistering winds. Our conference schedule is always really competitive. We always play some great games there. Last year, Limestone, we went to 12 innings at home against them, so it'll probably be pretty even again. So that'd be a good one to come out and watch. Non-conference, I got to think about the schedule for a minute.
Well, and we know with all the crazy weather, it may not be exactly what it's originally listed at.
We're going to host Springfield and Tri-City in a couple weeks. That was a great kind of triangle last year, some good competition. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess then the last thing we'll get you out of here on this, just maybe like one thing that, if this happens this season, you'll be really pleased as a coach. Like what's one goal or idea that you're kind of working toward?
Numbers wise, it's to have a 500 season. Okay. Finish 500 if we can get there. We've definitely been trending in that direction. We started pretty low, so we've been trending in that direction. If we can get a 500 season and finish somewhere in the middle of the conference, I'll be very, very happy about that.
Well, awesome. Thanks for taking the time, and folks, stick with us. We'll be back right after this.
Wow, great things happening there from Coach Kerby and the softball team right there. Looks like things might be going on an upslope there, trying to gain some momentum here, building all the way through youth sports, all the way up to the high school level.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that she talks about the idea of being, back at her alma mater and trying to kind of rebuild the program. And I mean, that's a special thing to be able to do that. So obviously we wish Coach Kerby and the softball program the best of luck this spring.
Yeah, which is going to be pretty awesome to them. So best of luck, ladies. Moving on, we just sat down with Coach Neisen and Coach Zeller of the track team. So kind of what are your takeaways from that interview before we go into that?
Well, I mean, I kind of like their enthusiasm obviously is great. I mean, both of them obviously really excited about track and have an opportunity to have a potentially really strong season. But I think it's kind of cool they talked about the building of the full track program. It's not because the distance kids were really successful this fall, but now it's building those sprinters and building those field event competitors, and just kind of the idea that this team's goal is to get to state, and it's going to take everybody.
Yeah, and with that being said, let's go hear from Coach Neisen and Coach Zeller themselves.
Welcome back to our MPTV Coaches Show. Ryan Lindley joined by our girls track coaches, Joe Zeller, Dakota Neisen. Coach Zeller, we'll start with you. Just kind of talk about season so far. I know it's obviously in the early stages, but what do you like that you've seen so far?
It's been great. We've gone to 3 indoor meets so far, and what I really love about this team is that we've got a really young group this year. And so we've been doing a lot of, kind of track 101 and learning how to perform at meets and how to go about those things. And so really at this time of year, what we're focusing on is, just improvement. And we've seen a lot about that, or a lot of that from our girls. And so it's been great. Yeah, only 3 meets in, but still a lot of PRs early.
Awesome. And then going over here to Coach Neisen, I know one thing that you work a lot with is working with speed and increasing speed. Just kind of talk about that process a little bit.
Oh, it's nice since we're obviously stuck indoors with this lovely Illinois weather, that we have an indoor runway that allows the kids to get their spikes on, and we have a timing system that we can work on just our top speed mechanics, and do that about every other day, and then we sprinkle in some stuff in the gym, do a lot of jumping. But yeah, like Coach Zeller said, just focused on improvement, because right now isn't necessarily the focus. It's where can we be at conference time and at state final time.
Yeah, Coach, let me talk about this. Just, I know obviously you coach cross country as well. Talk about kind of the dynamics. I mean, obviously had a really good cross country year, so I know the distance group is probably strong, but how do you kind of blend that with obviously the sprinters and the field events as well?
Yeah, it's tough. One of the things that I don't like about some track programs is when you feel like you have like 4 or 5 separate groups, right? And so something that we've really focused on is try to bring it together. And a lot of times, obviously, in practice, the distance kids are going to go, out on the roads, do their mileage. The sprint kids are going to be, indoors and on the runway. And so, obviously, we're not practicing together, but we're trying to work on that social stuff. How can we do stuff outside of practice? But yeah, we had a lot of success in the cross-country season, and I mean, it's starting to show. A lot of the girls, obviously on the distance team, put in big winters as well, and then we started our sprint training over the winter, and we've already seen big improvements from that, because it's off-season work that really pays off during the season. So just kind of rolls one season into the next and just kind of keep improving.
Awesome. And then, Coach, talk to me a little bit about just kind of, especially for those of us that maybe aren't track experts, what are some of like the key drills or key things that you work on to kind of make that off-season improvement?
So a lot of it is really just sprinting. To get it down to its bare bones is that the best thing that a kid can simply do to improve speed is to go as fast as they possibly can. But specific drills, we do a lot of marches, a lot of skipping, and then there's obviously specific drills that we can do, like we're leaned up against the wall, working on our knee drive and stuff like that, real more technical stuff. But at the end of the day, the best thing the kids can do in the off season for sprinting or top speed in general is just to simply sprint as fast as they can, and only do it a couple times, rest a lot in between in between the attempts. But yeah, it's really, it can be as simple as that.
Awesome. And then, Coach, talk to me a little bit schedule-wise. Certain things on the schedule, anything that you're excited about, meets that you're going to, things of that nature?
Sure. Well, so like we already talked about, we're three meets into our indoor season, and we've only got a few more. I mean, it's pretty short. It's really just the month of March. And so at the end of it, we'll have Illinois top times, which will take a few qualifiers too. And then we have a nice week off, and then outdoor season hits. And we've got a lot of good meets in there that we'll see some good competition. But really, we kind of use, like Coach Neisen said, we use those as getting ready for the end of the year. We're coming off of conference championship last year for the girls, and obviously trying to do as best we can at the conference meet again this year. And then, of course, the end goal is always how many girls can we get to the state meet. So that's really our focus. The other meet that we have that's on our calendar, or 2 meets really, that are really big for us, is we have The Metamore Mock Speed and Flight Night, which is on a Friday, and then the day after that, that Saturday, is the Morton Distance Gala. And those are two really great events where a lot of times when we go to big invites, we're limited on who we can bring. But these, we're unlimited. We get to take the entire team to them, and kind of their peak meets for us towards the end of the season, right before our conference week.
Awesome. And just one quick follow-up with the Distance Gala, because I know that's something, obviously, that you've started. Just talk to me a little bit about building that and kind of the process behind that.
Sure. So it was one of those things, kind of came out of necessity during the COVID year. We just were limited on the meets that we could go to. And, you know, we go to some meets, but either few teams that were going to them, or, you know, we were limited on how many kids we could bring. And so we started the Distance Gala as just an opportunity for, you know, teams to come in and bring unlimited entries. And so this will be the third year for it. We were really excited last year. We were uncertain when, you know, we came back to our normal schedule, whether or not teams wouldn't come back, and they did, because I think they really enjoyed the atmosphere. And so what we're trying to build is, number one, a meet that you know, there are no limits. Every kid can compete and do their best against high quality competition. And number two, it's just a fun meet to be at. So we do things like, we'll have an announcer, of course, we'll have music playing, you know, we'll have concessions, we sell t-shirts, you know, and we're looking at some stuff that we can do this year to make it even more of an entertaining experience, not just for obviously the athletes, but for the fans and for the community as well.
Awesome. And then I'll let Coach Neisen finish with this question. This is kind of a random one, but I like to ask, I think we've had track coaches on to ask this question before. What do you think is the most challenging event in track?
For high school, I'd say the 400, and then at a certain level, the 800, especially when you move past high school. But I mean, to be competitive in the 4 and the 8 to an extent, it's a sprint. Like, you can't take any second of that off if you want to be competing in the last weekend of the season at state or even in college.
Awesome. And then, Coach, agree on that one, or what would you say as far as the most challenging track event out there?
Triple jump.
Triple jump. Okay. Well, there you go. I like to throw that out there, see what people think. It would all be challenging for me, to be honest. I mean, I enjoy going and running around the neighborhood, but it's at a slow pace. I won't tell you what the pace is. But folks, one thing we're not going to hesitate on is coming back here with a little more on our MPTV Coaches Show. So stick around. Yeah, so once again, I mean, really cool interview there. And I just we mentioned before the building of everybody, I thought it was kind of fun to hear what they think is the most challenging event, too.
Yeah, I mean, we should maybe have a staff competition. Let's get Coach Zeller out there on that triple jump, see what's happening. I mean, as you said, I don't think either one of us are going to do it, and our times aren't the best. So, but best of luck to our girls track team there as they compete. You know, a couple more indoor things there. And then we'd invite everybody to come out to that distance gala. It's going to be held here outside of the football field in April there, so that'll be a big one. And then what are we going to wrap it up with?
We'll wrap it up with baseball. That's obviously near and dear to our hearts, of course, having coached baseball. But we talked to Coach Crawford about the varsity season and the potential for another strong team this year. So here's our interview with head coach Jesse Crawford. Welcome back to our MPTV Coaches Show. We're talking to head baseball coach Jesse Crawford here in the cages. So obviously we're on scene for baseball practice. Coach, just talk to me how practice is going so far.
Yeah, I think the energy level has been really good so far this year. Before even the regular season started, the off season was tremendous. Guys put a lot of time and effort in, so I think that kind of springboarded into the official start of the practice and things like that. So energy's been good, guys. The chemistry we're trying to build, and right now just trying to be creative, being inside, not being able to get outside with the weather, but things are definitely moving forward.
So, I mean, obviously expectations are high. One of the things you mentioned recently is that the coaches poll at the coaches meeting in the Peoria area, obviously Potter's voted #1 by pretty much every coach there. I mean, how do you kind of manage expectations like that?
Yeah, I think coming off back-to-back sectional championship years and with the core of guys, they don't overly, they might get excited about like the accolades in the preseason, but we all know that that's just stuff they put in print, and we got to kind of execute that plan in the postseason. So I think the entire regular season, obviously we want to fight for that middle Illini and, get through a competitive schedule, but we got to find what pieces fit together. And when you have experienced guys and you got some new guys kind of pushing them, to me, it's all about developing that chemistry, because we feel like from a physical standpoint, we got enough guys to get the job done. We just got to kind of put them in the right spots and to make them successful.
Let's talk about some of those returning guys. Obviously, you've got a ton of pitching back. Talk a little bit about the guys that are going to be on the mound for you.
Yeah, you start off with Tate Rowley, a 3-year guy, 6'6" lefty, been up to the high 80s this far in the offseason. But not only that, Last year he was 9-2. Year before that, got several starts in some key situations. Actually started the sectional championship as a sophomore. And, with that experience, with him already committing to Bradley, he can kind of focus on the team. And our thing is just to make sure he's healthy in the postseason. We felt last year when we got to that June spot, he kind of hit a dead spot with his arm, maybe from a mental standpoint, and we just want him fresh and kind of ready to go. So he'd be one, and then right there along with him on the mound is Tanner Spangler, who had very similar stats, 6'4" righty, junior, who's also looking like offensively is going to be a key piece, and then guys like Ethan Hurst and Braylon Smith, who've been kind of mainstays in the lineup the last couple of years. We look for them to be, tremendous assets to the team, and then Sieben, the center fielder, is a sophomore. He's a special talent, and Ryan Schaffnet, and just tons of experience, tons of guys. I could keep going with Will Lehman, A.J. Davis, Nolan Turner, just tons of guys that have kind of already been through the grind of a postseason. And we hope that those guys can kind of get some of these juniors that haven't been there yet, and we can just kind of get all things clicking in the right direction.
It seems like every year there's somebody that's kind of a surprise guy. Is there anybody that's maybe on the radar that you fans haven't seen but you feel like is going to have a big year?
Yeah, I would say on the mound, a couple guys that come to mind. First off, you got Noah Suttles, a guy that can really, he can mix it. He's got 2 different breaking balls. His velocity continues to spike. And then the one that's pitched a little bit varsity-wise the last 2 years but just struggled with command is A.J. Davis, and we feel like he's done some things mechanically, but we think he can be kind of a huge asset for us. And then, Nolan Turner continues to improve, and we think from the pitching side, those guys, and then in the lineup, you got a couple juniors with potentially Baylor Wilkinson, Noah Suttles is another guy, Luke Benders, all guys that can perform. And then Spencer Tim's another guy that's kind of an outfielder, can pitch a little bit. So I know I mentioned most of the guys, if not everybody on the roster. You still got other pitchers like Wyatt, Franklin, and Granger, but we got a lot of tools. The coaching staff, we feel like there's a lot in our shed. We just got to figure out how to utilize that and get everything going.
And then last question, just schedule-wise, any highlights on the schedule you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, going to Alabama here in a couple weeks, taking the sophomore and the varsity to Hoover. Going to go down and play some Southern teams that are 15, 20 games into their season. And then, you look at April 15th or 16th when we bring in at the JV and varsity level, we got St. Lawrence from Burbank, who's always a 3A perennial powerhouse, and then Normal U-High, who we get to read a lot about in the print and about all their guys and all these things that they do. That's had a tremendous success over there. So that'll be a day. And then towards the end of the season, got Moline and just the grind of the Middle Illini. That last series of the year, us in Washington, that could potentially be something special. So it's a 35-game season. Every game is equally as important, but we just want to make sure everybody's healthy and mentally prepared kind of going into that May-June stretch.
Awesome. Well, thanks a bunch, Coach. And folks, stick around. We'll be back right after this.
So as you can tell there, Coach Crawford's got a ton of positive things to say about this year's squad. We only lost 3 innings from varsity pitching, going on to the next level right there. Bringing back Bradley commit, Tate Rowley is going to be a big one there. Not to mention junior Tanner Spangler. There's a lot of pitching depth here, offense, experience at every level and every position, which is a big one there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams in the area are really respecting the Potters, which obviously they should. They did the poll at the coaches meeting. Potters were unanimous #1 in the large school vote.
All 16 votes right there.
Yes.
That's a big positive.
That doesn't happen very often. I don't know if people realize how rare that is when you do a coach's vote for preseason #1, that it's unanimous. Coaches sometimes can't agree on what dinner to order for those meetings. They agree that the Potters are the #1 team.
Well, I think those are some very high expectations to live up to, but I think the Potters can make it on the field there. So all these sports will have all of their schedules posted at 8to18.com. NFHS Network, Born Potter TV. As much as possible, we're going to be out to video as many of these events as possible. Also, what are we looking forward to next week, Coach?
And next week, we got some stuff starting up. Soccer, first game is scheduled for Saturday. Cross your fingers for some good weather that can happen. We're going to hopefully get a chance to talk about boys track as well. They're kind of beginning their season. So, some other spring sports still rolling or starting to get rolling, and excited to hopefully get a chance to talk to those coaches and some of those student athletes.
Yeah, but obviously if you get a chance, go out, support our athletes as we out there this spring, as hopefully bring home some championships to Clay Nation. For Ryan Lindley, I'm Eric Byers. Until next week, thanks a lot.